Well, here we are once again for an episode with In the Huddle. We're joined today by another one of my teammates, but one of my favorites. The one I think was my very first teammate, my very first experience as a New England Patriot was meeting Mr. Bob McKay. And not the dirty bad Bob from New Mexico, but the original bad Bob, the mean one, the albino, Bob McKay. I just had to throw that quote out from the Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean. But anyway, Bob, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So just to get started here, this is our 10th episode of In the Huddle. It's one of the creative ways that Patriots alumni have come up to do a little bit of fundraising activity. We're sponsored today by Mark Cruz and family. Over the years, Mark has supported Patriots alumni with mentoring and advice, and along with his family, has participated in all of our events and programs. Patriots alumni and its impact in the community does not exist without Mark Cruz. Thank you, Mark Cruz and family. And thanks for bringing us my pal, Bob McKay. So I'm going to just kind of introduce this whole thing. I was a little wet behind the ears when I came into Foxborough as a rookie, and Bob McKay was going into his 7th year. Oh, he was a vested professional football player, and for some reason he felt sorry for me, took me under his wings, and Bob McKay was taught me how to be a pro. And I don't mean how to block and tackle or any of that kind of stuff. I mean how to act, how to prepare for a game, how to take care of people, how to act on the road. And he turned me into the professional that I am today. Bob McKay, thanks for joining us.
You can't blame me for all of that. So, look, I had to work with.
What's that?
And tell Mark and Sue that I think this could be detrimental to his business.
Well, we don't mention his business on purpose. We just keep him in the personality of it. That's all. No, they're good friends. The Cruzes have done an awful lot for us, and I'm glad that you've gotten a chance to get to know them over the last couple of years when we've had our sporting clay shoot down in Addyville, Rhode Island. So Mark and we've also sat on his deck in Narragansett. What a beautiful place that is to hang out too. So anyway,
it's been a lot of fun, and it just keeps on giving. It's one of those things that it's amazing how blessed we are and have made it this long, and the friendships you have to show for it.
Yeah, no question. It was 1976 when we first met, and I'm proud and honored that we've stayed so close together for all of these years. And this exercise that we're doing now, Bob, it's been so much fun reconnecting with a lot of the guys that we played ball with. With having John Hanna and Steve Grogan, Stanley Morgan, Sam Cunningham, all those guys come on and join us. It's been a lot of fun just reconnecting and touching base with it. Of course, one of the last times you were up here was for the Hall of Fame induction. I think Raymond Claiborne was going in the Hall of Fame at that time, but to sit around the table at the end of that whole induction ceremony and tell stories was worth the price of admission. In fact, if we'd have thought about it, we would have, because we had about 30 people surrounding us. I don't think they believed half the things we were talking about, but nonetheless, we had a lot of fun doing it.
Some of them were actually true.
Well, some of them. Some of them you can't tell some of these stories.
Oh no, and it's like I told you when you asked me about coming on to talk to you. I feel like a pair of brown shoes with a tuxedo with the people you've had on here. I showed up and the team was just unbelievable, especially on the offensive side where what I dealt with every day was went from Russ to to Sam Adams, to Link, John, and Leon,
yeah.
and Russ, and then Andy and Sam Bam and Steve, and then Stanley and Daryl. I mean, hell, I was amazed at the talent that was on that team. It's just, unbelievable. Tommy was the right tackle. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's a hell of a team.
No question. They did a great job of drafting some young players. You take a look at even before I got there, when that 73 draft that the Patriots had, they got John Hanna, Sam Cunningham, and Darryl Stingley in that draft. And then, they got Steve Nelson in the 74 draft. And I think Andy Johnson came in there 74 as well. But then the other amazing part of it is that they went out and got guys like you. Tommy Neville was in his 12th year, my rookie year, rack tackle, but they went out and got guys like you, like George Webster, like Steve Zabel, who had experience with other NFL teams, but had 6 or 7 years under their belt, and George Webster had like 10 years under his belt. But to sprinkle in that kind of veteran presence around, around the younger players really made a big difference.
Well, I appreciate you mentioning my name in a group there, but the coaches too. When we got there, I knew Fairbanks from the head coach in the Hula Bowl when I was a senior. Ron Earhart had coached the All-American game when after I got out of school, so I knew both of them, and it's amazing. The problem I wish I'd had, or wish I didn't have, in 9 years I had 4 head coaches and 8 line coaches.
Yeah.
So, I get New England and Red's there, and then Red leaves, and we have Leon, and then here comes Jim Ringo. So, I mean, it's I'd have wished I'd have been there a little earlier, or gotten to where I could stay with 1 or 2. Ray Prohaska was the only coach I had for 2 years, and he's the only reason I stuck around. They were about ready to shoot me. I could run block, but I didn't know what a pass was.
Well, you grew up in that wishbone offense down at University of Texas. You can say what you want to about not being as famous as some of the guys we've mentioned on here, but let's just review this for a second, McKay. You were an All-American on a national championship football team on your senior year in 1969 with some terrific other athletes there. You were a first-round draft pick of the Cleveland Browns in 1970. You had a 9-year career in the National Football League, and it wasn't that long ago you were recognized and inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame down in New York City. What a fine time we had down in New York City. Okay.
Trying to recover. That may be the reason it's abandoned
now. So anyway, I mean, you're right up there. You got the pedigree to match anybody that we had on this football team. But I'll tell you what, the biggest thing that that you did, and I'll say it one more time, you were the big brother that I never had. And I mean, we unlike today in today's game, or even later in my career when we traveled. Later in my career, we'd land, and then there'd be a team meeting, and then a team meal, and then bed check. When I first broke into the league, there wasn't that. The only thing we were responsible for, in fact, they gave us a per diem to eat on. Wasn't much, but it helped. Was we just had to be back in time for bed check, and sometimes we cut that a little close, but. So we were, we'd be out go out and have a nice steak dinner or something the night before, and you taught me how to act when we were on the road.
No, you can't blame all that on me.
Well, I'll never forget, we were about halfway through the football season, and every time I reached into my pocket to pay for my own way, you weren't having it. You said that you were picking it up. And I finally told you at one point that I couldn't go out with you anymore when we were on the road and you said, why? And I said, because you don't let me pay for my meal. And you were quick to explain that when you were a rookie, a veteran took you under his wing and did the same for you that you were doing for me, and someday to repay you, I'd find a rookie and take good care of them. So I mean, it was a tradition that got passed on, and you taught me, and I passed it on, and I think it's still going on in the league today.
It should be, because that's one way we bonded. So.
Yeah, no, it should be. Explain who your Bob McKay was.
Well, there were two of them. Gene Hickerson, who went into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He started playing in Cleveland when I was 11 years old, and I played ball with him for 4 years.
Yeah.
And when he went in the Hall of Fame, he was in a wheelchair. And he was pushed across the stage by Jim Brown, Bobby Mitchell, and Leroy Kelly, three running backs.
Wow.
Pretty good pedigree. And, in 76 when I was drafted, and John DeMari was the other one. And John was from Lake Charles, Louisiana, and hunted and fished like I did. So, I mean, we had a ball hunting and fishing, and same thing we did when I got to New England. But Gene, in 76, we went AFL. That was when they combined the NFL and AFL. Well, all those players that had been there for a long time, the only defense they ran against was a 4-3, except for St. Louis, and they ran it over. So all of a sudden, we're dropped into the AFL, and everything changed. And they were having hell keeping up with the new block assignments of all the different defenses and everything else. So it was a scream. I mean, it turned into a lot of fun.
You're teaching an old dog new tricks by the time that happened. And you might explain a 4-3 defense. I don't know if everyone listening understands that, but the center's uncovered, and then there's the guards are covered that are next to the center, and then the tackles are covered with down linemen. And then they got two stand-up outside linebackers. So there are 4 down linemen and three linebackers. And when I came into the league, that was still predominant defense. There were different looks on that when you say over and that kind of stuff. But primarily, the center's job was to chase middle linebackers. So when I got in the league, I only weighed 255 pounds because I had to go chase another guy down who was 255 pounds. Then they started covering up the center with mean, nasty, big guys, and I had to get as big as the rest of them. Anyway, so the guards were always covered until, like you say, when you started facing some of the Okie defenses with 3 down linemen and 4 linebackers, and now the guards are the guys that are uncovered. And I can imagine Gene Hickerson, who was playing in the NFL in 1958, was probably scratching his head saying, what in the world is this?
Oh, it's unbelievable. So, but it was a transition time then, and today, with all the passion that they have, it's amazing. It's so fast and so quick. It's a different ball game. Plus, every linebacker we had in New England or in Cleveland would have been thrown out of the game for hitting people.
Right. Right.
It's a different way of playing ball now. It's a lot harder, I believe.
No question. I feel sorry for defense. You can't defend against the pass without getting pass interference called on you. Offenses are primarily set. Let's just throw it deep and hope we get the call.
Yeah, and especially if you're out in the open and the running back's coming at you and he goes down, ducks, he starts holding his head, and you got to meet him and you get a targeting call.
Right.
I mean, hell, if you go get run over.
Right. Yeah. No, it got a lot different. But you know what? There's still only so many ways you can run at the 6-hole, and every once in a while I take a look at professional football games and say, it looks an awful lot like Ride 34. Some of the old Earhart stuff that we used to run.
Well, the good thing about a team like up there is that you had Russ Francis, where all you had to do is slow him down. Russ would knock him plumb across the center.
We also had Sam Cunningham too. When Sam was on, we got talking about. Remember, we used to run Ride 34, and there's so many versions of the three back at the four hole. That's what 34 is. And ride was the series. That was the fake that the quarterback made. And I don't need to get really too technical, but you remember the play. But we could base block it, we could trap it, we can O block it, or my favorite was the wham. Was the wham block. And if we're facing if the right guard was uncovered on a ride 34 wham, he'd go block the linebacker, and my job was to stand the nose guard up, and Sam Cunningham was coming with about a 5-yard head start, and he was going to blow. That's what the wham call was. He was going to blow that defensive lineman up.
It was fun to watch.
It was fun to watch. At one point in time, when I got back in the huddle, I guess I wasn't sharing enough of the nose guard for him. He said, if you just get out of the way for a little bit, we can knock him into that linebacker's lap. So I guess I was occupying too much of the nose guard.
The sad part about that is you got too far over, he hit you too. That hurts.
Well, you didn't do that you might have done that once or twice, but you learned in a hurry that was not the right thing to do.
No.
Oh. Wow. Yeah, we had the teams we played on. Bob, you were here 76, 77, and 78, and those were some great years and some great Patriot teams, that's for sure.
Sad part is in 76 we had such a team, and to take the hickey that we did, it just but I'm glad to see we made up for it about 25 years later.
That didn't make it up for me as far as I was concerned. But that tuck rule.
It made me feel better.
Just slightly. I'll tell you, some of my favorite memories of you on the team had nothing to do with playing football. We had Tuesdays off, and we'd go in Monday after a game and watch film and soothe our aches and pains and that kind of stuff. And you didn't want to get injured, because if you got like an owie or something, you had to go back in and report to the trainer on Tuesday. But that took away from all of our hunting trips if you did that. And we went. Let's see. We went duck hunting. We went pheasant hunting. We went deep sea duck hunting one time. You remember that?
I've never been deep sea duck hunting. I'm real fired up on ducks, period. But Damari made me do that over in Cleveland. But out on a boat in the middle of the water, up and down. Hell, I squeezed in up there and opened one of the windows in the front, squeezed in between, and all I did was scare them. And then he wanted me to lay in that boat where you lay down and they wave at that. Hell, I told him that boat didn't have enough float for me.
What were we shooting black ducks out there or something? And all they're good for is putting in lobster traps. But it was, at one point you tried to strap yourself to the mast of this ship or something in the pilot house.
Around it, put my arms around it, and shot through it. I was looking at the mast. I had about as good a chance of hitting y'all as I did a duck.
That's true. You were glad to see land after that. We'd go fishing. We chartered boats. We chartered a salmon fishing boat on San Francisco Bay one time. We were out there playing. That was 78, wasn't it? 78.
78.
We went out to play the Raiders in Oakland, and we were staying on the Oakland side of the bay. We went and we went out on Friday. And then so on Saturday, all we did was we had a walkthrough and a meeting or something Saturday morning, and we didn't have to be anywhere till bed check. And so we chartered a boat, and there was probably 8 of us. Would you say?
8 or 10. All the time how it started, Wilson and I decided since we'd always been out, Gerald Wilson and I, we got to walk around that marina Said, have you ever been to Alcatraz? I said, hell no, I had never been to Alcatraz. He said, well, let's go. So we went down there to see if we could charter a boat to go out there. And this guy said, yeah. And I said, well, what do you charge? He said, I charge $25 a person. So we all paid $25 to go. I said, for how long? He said, till you get tired. Okay, so when we leave, he tells us it's fishing. I mean, the salmon are running. So being from Oregon, you run back there and throw every rod and reel out. I mean, you had hooks hanging out of this thing. We were, if we'd gone across a net, we'd have drug a whole damn, the whole bait in there with it. Right. We were just out there having a good time, taking a couple of beers and riding around. We went under the bridge and went around to Alcatraz, and then we decided to go to Sausalito. And you were all worried about making bed check. I said, look around. I said, you got the starting center, you got the starting linebackers, you got one of the running backs. I said, I think we're safe.
Well, we, yeah. And then I stayed on board the boat. When we hit Sausalito, all you guys looked like a bunch of pirates walking down off the gangplank. And I remember the captain saying, we got to be back by, I don't know, let's say bed check was at 11. If we got to be back by 11, I understand we have a football game to play the next day.
Back by 10, and so he said we need to leave here at 9:15, no later. Well, we left at 9:45 to 10. And we went getting into where the hotel was, and they had two of those party barges. There was a wedding, and they were tying them up. And I mean, this captain swamped those boats. I mean, he splashed everybody. We bailed off when the bow went down, took off running, and there was one poor guy tying his boat up. And Atomic Sean went by and just couldn't stand it. So he grabs him and just throws him, and he's wiggling in the air and finally figures out he's going to get wet. So he dives on in, and we just keep running. And we get in the room, and all of a sudden here comes Ringo with that captain and that guy walking down the hall, and you hear and we were about 20 minutes late being in the room. And on the way home the next night, he said, it's a damn good thing y'all won. He said, I'd turn you in.
That was Ringo said. We ended up beating them too. What was it? We beat them like 21-14 or something.
Oh yeah, we beat them bad. But I mean, it was, it's, what the hell? It was stuff you just don't do anywhere else. It was great.
No, it was. Then I think you started the New England Patriots Culinary Club when we traveled on away games. We turned that into let's eat at some of the finer restaurants in America, we may have mentioned this one on when Nellie was on, but I remember we commandeered a Greyhound bus in New York City, and they took us over to that steakhouse in Brooklyn.
Yeah, we were down there trying to find a cab. They'd take us over to Hoboken.
We were
trying to get back. And that bus driver was sitting there and said, what are you doing? So we're trying to get a cab, and they won't come over here. And he said, well, where do you want to go? We told him. Said, well, hell, this thing's paid for until midnight. So here we go. I buy some beer in New York, and Gerald Wilson walks in one of those bodegas there in his cowboy hat and his boots, and he's standing in line. It was a scream. I mean, that guy could parallel park that bus where you couldn't stick a Volkswagen.
Right. And then there was always Boo-Ray. We were always playing Boo-Ray on the airplane.
It was luckily they scheduled those football games for us, so we'd have something to do.
Exactly. And usually it was at 1 o'clock on Sunday. We didn't get too many of those premier ones, so.
Lots of fun.
Oh, lots of fun, lots of memories, lots of great times too. So football ended for you in 1978, and then what did Bob McKay do?
Went into the tire business, went to work for a tire company, and they sold big earth movers tires. And in fact, I went to New England, looked at a bunch of stuff up there. A guy I'd done a lot of business with out in West Texas got hired in Rockville, Maryland. Called me, and I went up and looked at some quarries in Maryland. In fact, over at Harper's Ferry, and then I flew in to New England. That's when you were still going back to Oregon.
Yeah.
Y'all were gone. I went to Nevada and looked at gold and worked, sent tires into gold mines out there. Just a heck of a job. And they paid me to go around and talk to my friends. So hell, it turned out to be a lot of fun.
And you moved back to Austin, Texas, at the University of Texas.
Yeah, we came back every year. We talked seriously about staying in New England. I mean, we enjoyed it so much. The people were so nice, and the fans are just outstanding. And, it was part of the country that's just absolutely gorgeous. But we'd already bought a home here in Austin in the off season, so came back. Luckily, we've been able to travel back up there. So.
Yeah. Well, New England wouldn't have been the same if you'd landed up here. That's for sure. Got to have you up a little bit more often. Of course, we get through this pandemic thing. Maybe we'll have you up here a little more often.
Well, it's such a pretty place, and the people, Mickey Zito and Francis Ted Betsy Rowe, and people like that took us under their wing and just, did so much for us, and were so good to us, and just absolutely the best place in the world to play football.
No question. Imagine what it'd been like if we'd have won one of those Super Bowls. Like it's been a hoot watching these guys play. That's for sure.
I would have bet our parade would have been better than anything they've seen so far.
Yeah, that might have been. The first one that they had was pretty special after that 2001 season. So
yeah.
That was awesome. What are you up to these days? You're still not selling tires.
No, I'm retired, but this thing here, this pandemic, of all the stupid stuff I've done in my life and lived through it, you'd think sitting still on the sofa with a mask on would be easy, but it's wearing my butt out. I'm going to tell you. I'm just not used to sitting still this long. And I told Donna the other day, I'm thinking about getting in a truck and driving to Fort Stockton, Texas, which is about 500 miles from here, eating lunch and turning around and coming back.
Just for something to do?
Just to out and go. I mean, this is ridiculous, but it's, I just don't understand people that won't take the precautions. And, if you don't want to wear a mask for you, that's fine. Wear it for me. It's 72. I don't need to take any stupid chances right now. So.
Yeah, you've overcome those odds in the past, and those odds are catching up with you now, right?
I'm way to the curve. Let me tell you. And how are you doing? I said, I'm scared they're going to catch me and make me take what I've got coming. That'll be a lot.
Well, where you'd be.
The sidelines, where we, the stuff you learn with New England, it's just amazing how well the coaches and the team were, inspired the owner. It was absolutely wonderful being there, and I appreciate you letting me come by on this thing.
Oh, I'm telling you, I'm having more fun doing this, Bob. To have all the guys on that we played. Next week we've got Tony McGee and Ray Hamilton are going to be on this show next week. I'm looking forward to both of them. Tony McGee played in the era before they started tallying sacks, and and we used to call him Mac the Sack because he was just uncanny the way he'd rush and get in there on quarterbacks. And somebody told me that if they had counted and somebody had done the research to come back, he was up there amongst the NFL leaders when he showed up at New England.
Oh, he and Raymond both. You go all the way across. Julius and Steve and the two Steves and then the big backer and then Mike Haynes. Good God! Look at Tim Fox.
Right.
You know, and you look at the team we had, Jordan Webster. Now,
Yeah.
telling you what you talked about, a man among men. Woo.
He was scared.
And just that you see them and you watch them play, and then you know how they operate. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah, and to watch all of that stuff happen, you know, and you know, Ray Hamilton, uh, up until about I think 3 or 4 years ago, was still coaching in the league. I know he coached for years in Atlanta, so he's been around. They'll both be pretty interesting to have on this show and share some of the defensive side of the story. But you're right. You take a look at, you know, Steve Nelson in the middle was just was the anchor. You know, he called the shots. He was the quarterback on that. Steve Zabel on the strong side. You had Steve King on the weak side and big backer next to Nelly. You know, when we got into 3-4 defenses, that was pretty formidable. Mike Haynes. The next year they drafted Raymond Claiborne in the first round. You had Tim Fox back there. Just, you know, phenomenal defense. Like you say, we had all the pieces together, but just man, we were an inch away from starting something real special. And then Fairbanks decides he's going to go coach at the University of Colorado because the Sullivans were stripping some of his power away, and he thought he was going to go, and that kind of ended the whole run.
Yeah, there was a void there for a little while, but I mean, it's still, you know, with the fans and it's just amazing the place that you walk out. You used to walk out of that stadium and, you know, walk out into that parking lot in the back and see that church way down in the trees when the leaves started changing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's just a special place.
It is.
You know, Don and I still talk about it all the time and laugh. I'm telling you how much fun we had, and you know the wives had a lot of fun while we were on the road.
That's right. Well, you think,
yeah, it was great, you know, and just a lot of fun.
We'll get you back up here soon.
Well, I appreciate you letting me on here, and like I said, it's an honor to be among these guys. I promise you.
Yeah. Well, and you'll be pleased to know that we're getting real creative about fundraising. We've got this opportunity for people that might want to sponsor these episodes to bring these on, and our friends down at Addyville, Jack O'Brien and Sally down there, have opened up one of New England's finest game preserves and shooting courses down there, and they've opened that up for Patriots alumni. So we're selling hunts down there, Bob. We've got a pheasant hunt coming up with on next Tuesday. In fact, Mark Cruz and his group is going to join us down there in the field, and we've got another one lined up for the week after that. So anyway, those are creative ways we can still be COVID compliant and social distancing and all that kind of stuff, and sponsor hunts in the field. And of course, you know, being able to sponsor these episodes like Mark Cruz and his family have for this episode. So if anyone's interested in how they might participate in sponsoring Patriots and keeping our mission alive, I've put my email address right here underneath my name as part of that whole thing. Or you can find us at patriotsalumni.com and find out ways that you might want to participate. So for today, Bob McKay and this episode of In the Huddle is brought to you by Mark Cruz and family. Over the years, Mark has supported Patriots alumni with mentoring and advice, and along with his family has participated in all of our events and programs. I got to tell you, Patriots alumni and its impact in the community does not exist without Mark Cruz. So thank you, Mark Cruz and family. And thank you, Bob McKay, for being part of this. Anytime you want to. You and I have lots of fun just getting on the phone about every 2 weeks or once a month or something and getting caught up with each other. But it's been fun sharing that kind of experience with you on this program today.
Well, y'all take care and enjoy Addyville, because it is absolutely one of the premier places in the American east, I promise you.
It really is. They've got sporting clays course out there. They've got upland birds to hunt. They've got a couple of trout ponds for fly fishing. And anyway, Jack and Sally do an awesome job, and we can't wait to get out in the field there with them. So anyway, with that, I'm going to let you go. Miss Donna's probably got supper, or you probably have to go pick up supper, don't you?
And we're getting closer to the truth now.
So anyway.
Something. Y'all take care.
All right, Bob. Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us today. Next week, next Thursday at 4:30, be sure to join us with on Facebook Live and experience Tony McGee and Ray Hamilton. So with that, I bid all adieu.
Take care.